Hi, everybody. This is Dylan James. I'm a vice president here with Nasdaq's office in San Francisco. Thank you for joining us for another edition of Nasdaq Spotlight, and this one is very, very special. Betsy Atkins is a three-time CEO and serial entrepreneur. She's the founder of Baja Corporation, and Baja is an early-stage angel investor that's involved in technology, energy, and life sciences. Betsy is also the author of Be Board Ready, which is a brand new book, and we're celebrating that today and this afternoon and this evening here at the Entrepreneurial Center. But also, too, I want to make sure that doesn't go unnoticed, Betsy has served on the second most corporate boards in the US. So that is pretty special and makes good sense that you wrote Be Board Ready. So welcome, Betsy.
Thank you, Dylan.
If you don't mind, I want to get right into it because I really enjoyed the book. So what should CEOs be thinking about pre-board meeting?
Well, I'll give you a menu of things, and the CEOs can pick from it and use the ones that are most applicable for them. But I think it's valuable for a CEO to call each board member just 2 or 3 minutes before a board meeting. See what's on their mind. You don't want to be surprised or ambushed in a meeting. You want to get the pulse and the sense of the board and know if there's any important topics that you can weave in. I also think write a letter to the whole board, a 2-page letter covering what's going to be the main topics of the board meeting. Will it be for action, information, for decision? Where do you want their input and engagement? Start the board meeting with a State of the Union, lay out what's going to happen, and frame up the whole discussion. And then at the end of a board meeting, typically there is an exec session, and the CEO will get a readout. So there'll often be a few follow-up items or action items. And as the CEO, it's valuable to capture them, memorialize them, and then come back to the board how you followed up if there was a particular action.
And then how do directors decide where to engage and have input?
I think it's really important for the CEO in creating the agenda that they identify the sort of couple of big topics that they want the board to give input, opinions, discuss, debate, and decision, or just get the board's thinking on. Because if you don't do that, a board meeting is 4 to 6 hours long. You have 8 to 10 people. They're not going to sit quietly for 4 to 6 hours. And if you don't give them a specific direction of where you want their input and engagement, they're going to start to go off on tangents. You're going to lose control of the meeting. It won't be good.
You talk about in the book, you have to give them 2 really, really meaty subjects,
Yes.
or else you're going to devolve down the rabbit hole, right?
And that is what happens. I've seen it.
Yeah.
It's not good for the CEO.
No, it's and probably not a good use of time in the grand scheme of things. Talk about how board members build relationships with one another. A lot of times you're brought into a board because of your area of expertise, but it's important to connect with the other individual board members as well.
It's really true. And as the CEO who is building out their board, one of the first things you do is you hire, recruit, 3 really strong and experienced chairs: your audit chair, your compensation chair, your nominating and governance chair. And as part of the characteristics that you would look for in at least a couple of those people is an outgoing personality that's got good EQ and will be that connective tissue, because inevitably there'll be some big topics and you'll need to get consensus and get agreement. And if there hasn't been some connective tissue built up between the board members so that they can process cohesively as a team, it will be hard to get the outcome that you want and the right decision. And so I think that connection between the board members is very important to foster.
Speaking of big topics, there are a handful that you address in the book that I found fascinating: ransomware, cybersecurity, ESG, environmental, social, and governance, which back in the old days we were calling SRI, right? But in addition to that, there's one that remains kind of consistent, which is crisis management. And from your perspective, having served on a lot of boards, how can companies best prepare for crisis?
So, things have really evolved. 20 years ago, crisis management was disaster recovery from a hurricane, and your data center was stuck being connected to only one grid. That's not crisis management. Now we live in a 24/7 world, and the CEO really needs to be trained on the crisis. And they need to actually get comfortable in front of a camera, practice the video of what are the sort of 10 most likely things that would go wrong. For example, I was a governance chair in the past at Darden Restaurants. Mm-hmm. So what would go wrong in a restaurant? Well, God forbid, you'd have a mass shooting. You'd have food poisoning. You'd lose all the information of the customers in a cyber breach. You'd have a hashtag #MeToo, whatever it is. You can't, in a crisis like that, call a board meeting, get the lawyers, and decide what to do. The CEO needs to be ready to act, and they need to be warm and real and genuine and authentic and speak from the heart. And that happens with practice and video those things so that you're ready to pull them off the shelf. So that's crisis management. And then there's some predictable things you can plan for. You could plan, because it's happening everywhere, that there could be a ransomware attack. So for crying out loud, open the Bitcoin account. Mm-hmm. You're going to pay. Everybody pays. You're not going to lose all your files, so be ready. You could expect, because it happens to companies, that there would be an activist event where they would try to, take control of the company or push an agenda. So the way to avoid that would be to have your financial advisors, your bankers, do an outside-in look. Where are your vulnerabilities once a year? So there's some things you can plan, some you can prepare, and some you practice.
Mm-hmm. That's a good place to end. Plan, prepare, and practice. So the book is Be Board Ready. I want to thank Betsy Atkins so much for being here. We're excited about the event this evening, and it's great to have you join us. Please keep watching and join us again on Nasdaq Spotlight.